Question of the thread: what are some cryptids or creatures from Siberia? And feel free to post and discuss about anything relating to any other kind of cryptids or mysterious creatures here too. Examples being, but not limited to Wendigos, skinwalkers, vampires, werewolves/dogmen or anything of the sort, Bigfoot/Sasquatch, Yetis/abominable snowmen, Chupacabra, Ozark Howler, Mothman, Mark Zuckerberg, etc. Again, it's not limited to only these things, it was just to get an example of what to post. Feel free to post about anything you think is relevant. Feel free to discuss whatever type of cryptid or mysterious creature comes to mind, commonly known ones or obscure ones, and what regions they hail from. Feel free to share personal stories, to other people's stories. From people you know, or people you don't know. And even stories you've read about in books, forums, image boards, or elsewhere on the internet, or seen from YouTube, movies, and TV. Any story you've heard, as long as you think the story could be true or find it interesting enough, feel free to share it.
Chwafafi. The Congo mega spider. Anyone has anything on it?
Gentlemen, you don't have to go to Africa for giant spiders. There are plenty right here in the US. Think huntsman type, but much, 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 much bigger.
Well, I don't think it's big enough. Speaking of which, I saw a big-ass mosquito in my house earlier today. At the edges of its legs, it was like the size of the diameter of a toilet paper roll, but probably a little bigger.
Did you read the article? I guarantee it's worth it. The pic was just something I randomly found. And that mosquito you saw was actually a crane fly. They look exactly like mosquitoes but 4 times the size. They're good bugs, so don't kill them.
Not a spider, but one time as a kid, I found a giant foot-long dragonfly nymph in a stream. Years later when I was watching Hunter x Hunter, and they get to giant ant arc, I start remembering that odd childhood experience. Wasn't really scary at the time, just unsettling. Can anyone relate?
As a kid, I bought a cool gilt salamander at a pet store that was subsequently shut down for selling illegal pets. It was greenish-brown with little black spots all over it. When I first got it, it was about 6 inches long. But here's the thing, it never stopped growing. By that winter, it was a foot long. By the following summer, it was so big I had to buy a bigger aquarium. I had long since given up trying to feed it fish food and pellets. We'd taken to giving it hamburger and chopped up hot dogs. We tried to find it in encyclopedias, but nothing we found either looked like a match or, even if it looked similar, no mention was made of them growing this huge. By that point, the pet store had been shut down and my parents and I had become afraid that we were in possession of some ultra-rare illegal animal. By that following winter, the damn thing was nearly 3 feet long. We turned it loose in the creek below our house. 10 years later, I saw something that could only have been it laying in shallows under the bank's overhang. By my guess, it was at least 6 feet long.
Sounds like a giant Japanese or Chinese salamander. You were right back then, those are ultra rare, I think critically endangered or something. If released in North America they could realistically survive our winters just like they do in Asia.
I read in a cryptozoology book that early explorers in the northwest of the US and Canada saw huge salamanders. Like the ones that live in Asia high in the mountains. Not hellbender-sized ones, I mean like 4 to 6 feet long monster ones. There's been a bunch of studies and articles about this if you look it up. Maybe the one you got was of a relic population or something.
Shit, that was recent. Well, I hope they find him alive. Also, I haven't really looked into the missing 411 before. Can anyone give a summary of what it's about exactly?
The missing 411 is a compilation of unexplained disappearances. Initially just in national parks, but now applied to remote areas in general. Having read the books and spent plenty of time in the woods, I would say maybe 3/5 aren't that mysterious, and without any more data could easily be predators, slips, trips, falls, avalanches, flash floods etc. and are probably included as filler. That being said, 2/5 are truly bizarre and usually include any combination of the following elements. Body found dead in an area that was already searched has been dead long enough that it should have been there when searched. Body or person found dead or alive in a location too far to have been traveled within the time span they were. Missing, including children being found on opposite sides of a mountain or at different mountain entirely. Adults found alive are either mentally handicapped or have no memory of what happened. Children found alive say they were with gorillas, bear man, dog man etc. or again have no memory or lack the speech faculties to recount anything. SAR dogs or cadaver dogs refusing to track. Clothes found next to remains folded and placed in oddly pristine condition. It's worth noting that the guy that compiled the cases is a proven huckster, as he was fired from his police department for using his position to dupe celebs out of autographs, claiming they were for police charity auctions or something.
As for this thread, what do you people think of these supposed dogman/werewolf noises? I don't know too much about dog people cryptids or extranormals, but they sound a little high for what I've heard in regards to lycanthropy, which is apparently a lot more human and a lot more snarling or screaming than stray howling.
Well, it doesn't really sound like proper howling, but almost more like yells or screams. To me it does still have almost a human-like sound to it. But it also has a canine sound to it. It has both. Almost like a person trying their best to imitate wolf howls by yelling out a guttural yell with no vocal qualities whatsoever. But it still has a canine sound to it that can't really be imitated by a human. But whatever it is sounds big and has some powerful lungs. You can hear just how much those howls, or more properly yells or screams, are being forced out. I haven't ever heard a dog sound like that before. Also, a little side note. Regular humans actually have some relatively powerful lungs to begin with, so long as they know how to yell properly. Now imagine something like a werewolf.
Nah, it sounds more like straight wolf noises. They tend to yell like that, similar to huskies. Wolves have similar thoracic cavity space to humans and are generally loud as they have to communicate long distances, often through heavy snow or wind interference. Stuff I know in relation to lycanthropy is more scream, in the fashion that it's often a howling scream, as they're in a state of active distress instead of just communicating.
Yowling. Yeah, that's more like the word I was looking for. I'm not too good with recalling certain words I want to use. But it did kinda sound like a howling scream to me, or like they might have been in distress. Not so much in the first one recording though. In the other thread, I asked the person if the howling he heard sounded similar to that video, and he said sort of, but about an octave and a half deeper. But he heard an actual howl, not one of those howling screams. He said the following was the closest example to what it sounded like. It almost sounded like it, he said. Enough to put his hackles up, but still not quite. Also told him about these couple stories I've heard about instances of killer werewolves. They don't seem to always have intent to kill, but sometimes they do. I think Bigfoot might be similar in that aspect too. They're pretty interesting stories, you should check them out. They're by a YouTube channel called Cryptid Studies Institute. I haven't seen many videos by them, but I think they're being genuine in what they say. You should check out their channel too. Here's the videos.
I grew up by that area where that happened. Those bastards are real, and so is the big red Bigfoot that tore off dumpster lids in Wagram. It's been hit by cars on US 401. The ones west of there and down into the PD River area are vicious as shit. The people who grow weed along the river have had horror stories of these things for a long time. There was one they called Bernard by Pembroke, NC. Southeast of there. I can show some spots where me and other people have seen them on the maps or at least coordinated. My mom almost wrecked with us in the car, when a big black dog thing walked out in the middle of the road. When we came back from Myrtle Beach in 1992 there. It's all built up now, compared to then, but I was young. There was nothing out here, besides lumbies growing weed, making shine, and drugs. My high school GF was from here. Her family had houses with guns everywhere, not for cops, most were robes and county cops of some kind, or criminals, because most were busted in Operation Tarnished Badge, but the freaking haints. Think cattle mutilation, tear cows getting ripped apart. These things aren't little either. You won't go into a building. They do look inside. When you are years old, that is horrifying, and you will not be able to sleep unless it's daylight for a while afterwards. Always follow the water. They will slop in the horse's water, and the horses will never drink from that container ever again.
I heard they're like around 7 feet tall when standing up. That's the most consistent number I've seen. So what do they look like exactly? Are they the hybrid type that looks like the pic in this post, or are they more natural looking like the pic in this post? Or have you seen both?
You never see them standing around, they stay behind stuff. The eyes you see at night. They played with a Friday we had out here as scrap. You could hear them slapping the door closed and howglug growling gargle noises. They stay low to the ground, and mostly you see something hanging off a tree trunk, so they don't touch the loud ass leaves and shit on wood's floor. Most of the shit down there is at least semi-arboreal. There is a lot of fairy lights too.
So it looks like they know to keep somewhat hidden. Have you ever gotten a good look at any of them? What did they look like? And have you ever felt legitimately threatened by one? Not like they just wanted to scare you off, but like they wanted to kill.
The one they call Cinnamon is a Bigfoot. But not like Harry and the Hendersons, more like Ludo from Labyrinth, very big, but quiet and reclusive. It's orangutan colored. It would eat the stuff my friend's mom had off to the side in her fairy garden she planted. By fairy garden I mean the garden planted for house brownies and pixies. It's still a thing here. The haints, dogmen, are all kinds of colors under the trees. I have yet to see one in full daylight. Just run around the open like it ain't shit. No animals do that besides stupid ones like deer. They have never attacked us, but it's still terrifying. Just seeing something like that staring at you in the moonlight is enough to make you cry and beg God to come send his angels to save you. I still don't go anywhere near even parks without being armed now.
This may sound insane, but I don't believe all dogmen are aggressive. Keep in mind, I'm not trying to downplay known cases where they have been. I mean, I even posted videos of a couple stories about killer dogmen, but I don't believe that they're all like that. I've heard a fair amount of stories, and a lot of them weren't aggressive. But nevertheless, you should still be cautious. Good on you for keeping firearms with you. But don't be the first one to attack first. If they weren't pissed off before, then they certainly will be if you attack first. But if you truly feel threatened, by all means, do what you feel is right. You should always listen to your gut feelings. I think I've even heard about killer Bigfoots too. I haven't looked into Bigfoot that much, though. But don't be led by deception. For example, I heard that moose are more dangerous than bears, but no one cares about moose. People just waltz right up to them without any caution. How many times do you think you've seen dogmen or Bigfoot, or at least had ones nearby to you?
I think I would be on edge, and slightly aggressive if every human I saw tried to shoot me or run away. The aggressiveness can also be thrown up to territory. The howls are likely a means of telling humans to GTFO of their territory, much like you telling random strangers to get off your lawn.
Kurupi's most distinctive feature, however, was an enormous penis that was ordinarily wound several times around his waist like a belt. Due to this feature, he was at one time revered by the Guarani as the spirit of fertility. I remembered him because there was an Anon/int/ who claimed his sister-in-law might have been struggle-snuggled by one of these, while tripping balls at a native wedding ceremony, and now his nephew might be half Kurupi. Dude's supposed to have a massive dick that everybody in the family jokes about.
OMG this. I told the story back, shit I don't remember. But I'll tell again, Anon's visiting old work buddy. Buddy is former army, combat tour in Afghanistan. Drinking heavily, watching backyard fire. Asking questions. Somehow get on the subject of shit we don't talk about. Launches into story. Gets all excited and slurs out this, army bro got back from the sandbox, His infantry unit gets reassigned to work in Oz, someplace on the northern part of the Grand Canyon. Army is supposedly doing excavation in tunnels at bottom of canyon, bringing artifacts up. Tunnels, however, are heavily inhabited/infested by spiders of various sizes, ranging from regular spiders to spiders the size of cars. Spiders are territorial and aggressive. Army Bro said he spent most of his time pulling topside guard duty. Best story he had: gets on guard duty, settles in watching birds and shit, suddenly campsite goes on alert and QRF dives into tunnels. After a while they start coming back acting pleased with themselves. Said he saw one dude brought up on a stretcher with his leg all messed up. Described it as basically melting from a single bite point. Another guy comes up behind the bit soldier and is getting hugs and celebration. Scuttlebutt was that the search squad along with the people looking for stuff down there were ambushed by a bunch of spiders. Usually easily shot down or scared off by flares/fire. Kid got bitten on his upper thigh and injected with venom which started turning his leg to jelly. Big dick energy dude jumped in to save his friend, dropped rifle trying to drag him back, finally engaged using pistol, knife. Saved his buddy by ripping off spider's foreleg and using it to stab the bastard's eyes out. According to Army Bro, the spiders would die if they got a few limbs shot off cause their bodies needed constant hydraulic pressure. Glad I came back. Army Bro said that there were things loaded into plastic storage boxes and said a couple spider got loaded up as well, dead and alive. Said he heard that the army had moved other stuff out of the site and it was still ongoing when his platoon was rotated out. There was a claim made by a guest on C2 Cam years ago that the army supposedly airlifted 2 obsidian crypts/coffins out of the canyon that were so large they had to be tether lifted by Chinook helicopter. The boxes were covered in symbols or writing. Don't remember who made the claim, but the episode was on giants. Of related topic, Terry's The Giant of Kandahar story, which Army Bro said he believed was gospel. For those not in the know, Ranger Element goes on search and destroy mission in hillside in Kandahar. Supposed to find Al Qaeda in caves and mountains. Get attacked by enormous humanoid wielding a spear or bow or something. Small arms and ineffective, finally drop the creature with heavy weapons. Intelligence/alphabet boys/whoever, shows up, takes the body, scubs everything, swears everyone to silence. Didn't realize how quick word travels in the military, but officially denied all stories as rumor, heresy, and lies. Giant people. Giant spiders. I dunno if there's a link, but as for Arizona, look, we tested the A-bomb in White Sands. There has to be some kind-of correlation between that much radiation and the fact that the southwest United States is full of bumps in the night. Southwest is full of all kinds of messed up shit that goes bump in the night. Elsewhere you have to go to specific places or very deep in the woods to encounter so many bumps. Even the military is paranoid about it in the Nevada and New Mexico. Especially the boots. Poor bastards constantly get screwed with when based there. They have very good reasons for hating those deployments especially.
Bump. British Columbia and Anon here. I didn't think that I had gotten any responses in the last thread, but apparently I did, so I'll continue on with the myths. Northern Canada has so many myths of monsters and other predators, that it gets rather predictable after a while, so I've chosen something that you guys might like. In July 1631, one Captain Fox, who was looking for the Northwest Passage in the very north of Canada, discovered something very odd. He found an above-ground cemetery with numerous small coffins made of both stone and wood. Inside the coffins were tiny skeletons, only 4 feet high. Inside the coffins were also bows and other tools. I'll continue this soon. Captain Fox's journal entry about these northern elves are available online, and he did a much better job of describing them than I can. Elf-like creatures are a common trope in North Canadian folklore, but as I would like to continue to other myths, I'll talk about the other small inhabitants of Canada. In Ontario and in its surrounding areas, especially in the mountainous and lake-infested regions, there are tales that of a race of dwarf-like creatures. While there are some differences, they have a general pattern. The creatures are about 4 feet tall, are strong for their size, are fiercely intelligent and have a mischievous yet helpful attitude. They often kidnap brides, yet will always make the man whose daughter they kidnap a wise man, or give him a high rank as a thank you. They are happy to help humans and can be playful. They live in lavish dwellings made in the caves of the mountains. There are another group that inhabit the rocky cliffs of rivers and lakes. They are similar in appearance but are much less friendly and more sinister. These are not to be confused with wild men of Neanderthal-like creatures, that also frequent mythology. This is just a brief rundown of elves and dwarves in Canadian mythology. I was especially surprised to learn that they have many similarities with their European counterparts. Almost as if they are to Native Americans and exactly what dwarves are to Europeans. Perhaps they were the same but just evolved on different continents. As my family has only encountered a few inhabitants of mythology, I cannot confirm these myths to be true. Regardless, they are fun stories to tell.
I remember a green text thread where someone went to visit family up in the, either Alaskan or Canadian, wilderness. The relative had pillars embedded around his home with runes carved in them, for protection. They were to protect him from creatures that lived in the surrounding woods. They were gnome-like. Eventually the Anon messed up when doing something and angered the creatures. They then attacked the house and caused the Anon and his relative to leave. I'll look around and try to find it. Found it. Apparently it's a well-known green text though.
I also live in BC. I've actually posted stories about my own run-in with the Fae folk. One particular story is where I come across one at a lake. I've also had experiences when I attended university in Ontario. I unknowingly followed a fairy light, thinking it was a firefly, only to be told the next day that it wasn't the season for them, or that they didn't appear in the area. I can't recall which. This was 10 years ago. But it did spook me.
Okay, I will go now. This story is from French Canada, so out of my expertise, but my research had given me a good idea of it. It's a cold winter night in the fort. The Marines stand around the outpost listening for any Iroquois, hoping they don't commit the same atrocities that they have in other settlements. The old captain, who's been in Canada for 20 years, sits inside. Throughout the fort are friendly natives, French Canadians and the French Marines sent there to protect them. Then through the cold winter air the abrupt crack of a musket is heard. 3 more shots are heard as the remaining guards run to the perimeter to see what it was they were firing at. The captain asks what the commotion was about. The 2 first guards to have fired declared that they had seen a group of devilish Indians dancing around with fire, only for them to disappear immediately once they had fired. The captain sends the platoon on a search only to find nothing. The civilians inside, having heard the report, begin to wonder what it was. Soon the experienced among them were explaining their stories with the Loup Garou. The old sergeant, I realized after re-watching the research videos, that he was a sergeant, not a captain, was begged by the crowd to explain his friend's experience with a female Loup Garou near Montreal. He went on to explain that his friend was a corporal, who had came with him from France, and together they had fought many battles against the Indians. He then recalls the unfortunate fate of another soldier who was captured by the Indians and who died at the stake smiling. He then explains how his friend had made the acquaintance of a young Indian maiden, from a clan of warriors. He describes that the 2 became married with the dismay of the woman's father. However, at the point of an heirloom musket, he changed his mind on the matter. The sergeant and corporal then returned to the fort they were assigned to. The women then joined the native tribe that lived under the protection of the French fort. However, whenever the corporal went on a patrol, the wife threatened him if he did not come back, or if he was not loyal to her. Unfortunately, the higher-ups of the 2 made an announcement that no one could accompany them on their missions out of fear of them being spied. This was unfortunate, as the woman demanded that she would follow her husband on all of his missions, to make sure he was safe and was faithful. So they covered her face up and took her on their expeditions under the disguise that she was a French supply helper. However, after a successful campaign against the natives, they were given a peace deal. Any Frenchman who would live the life of peace and married a local would be paid handsomely. Unfortunately, the corporal had lost sight of his wife and believed she had either ran away back to her home tribe or returned back to the garrison. Not seeing her for an extended period of time, the corporal had set his eyes on another woman. The sergeant, being his friend, advises him on the consequences of marrying another woman, despite his wife's earlier plea. Later the 2 were enjoying their time at a marketplace, when they were suddenly surprised by the appearance of the corporal's first wife. The corporal, being beyond embarrassed, quickly tried to brush the obvious issue off. The girl explained that she had joined up with another tribe where she was now living, and was making money off of hunted furs. She had come to Montreal to make money off of recent hunts. The meeting ended abruptly, with the corporal being upset at the abruptness of her leaving. Later, the corporal and his new French fiancée had gotten married. However, she had quickly become near death's grasp, because of a dire illness. One day when he returned home, he noticed his first native wife sitting in his home. He was extremely disturbed by her appearance inside of his home. He quickly became suspicious of why she was here, especially because of the circumstances regarding his wife. She explained that his white maiden would be dead by morning, if she did not give her the medicine from her tribe's medicine man. The corporal was distrusting of her tribe, as he believed their medicine to be superstitious and mysterious, yet it was his only option. She told him to meet her at 12 o'clock on a pine opening near a river. Before he could question, she was gone in the direction of her tribe. He appeared at the meeting place, only to be confronted by two enormous glowing yellow eyes peering out of the dark. He quickly pointed his musket at the beast, believing that it could not be a native, but instead a wolf. He fired, missing the creature. The beast then punched at him, and he fought the gigantic wolf in front of him, with his hunting knife. Not knowing what to do against the ferocious beast, and being superstitious, he attempted to make a cross-shaped cut on the beast's head. After more brutal fighting, he was able to land the cut, and with a woman-like whimper, the wolf fled into the woods. He soon relished what had happened. The final part. The man suddenly realized what had happened. As the girl was baptized in the Christian faith, her tribe had placed a curse on her, turning her into a Loup Garou as punishment. As the girl was still in love with the man, she had frequently visited his house and had become good friends with the man's wife. Unfortunately, the disease that had ravished her village had infected his wife. So when she returned to his house one day to take care of them, she waited until he had returned. However, she still hated the man, as he had betrayed her by marrying the other women, so she would use the idea of a possible cure to lure him into a trap, where she would ambush and kill him. Unfortunately, she had lost the fight, and such the man came back alone, to the man who would later become the sergeant, with the tale of the revenge of a Loup Garou. Finished. This is just one story of werewolves in Canadian folklore. Please ask me more for more info if you have questions.
The Jersey Devil. There are over 2,000 reported sightings of the Jersey Devil in the southern Pine Barrens going back nearly 300 years. Cryptids are antibodies for the organism known as Earth. They protect important parts of Earth from human technology. All natural reserves, some national parks, and some natural forests do not allow any digital electronics whatsoever on the reserve, park, or forest. It's because the electronics mess with the electromagnetic frequency of the spirits of the forests or landmarks, and when this happens, the reserve/forest/park will release its antibodies, aka cryptids, to deal with the threat. We created national reserves, parks, and forests not to preserve nature but to protect humanity. The electric grid, all the power lines, their true purpose is to be an electric fence to protect humanity.
Me and Buddy ran into the same shapeshifter twice at different places. We shat bricks both times. First time we were just messing around, late at night in the middle of nowhere in the high desert during around the time of the full moon due to a job. To see a distant naked woman, except for a fur, walking through the wilderness. Confused the shit out of us when we were about to call out, when she suddenly transformed into a coyote or wolf, hard to tell due to distance and darkness, that ran off. Both of us looked at each other with the question in our eyes, saying, "Did you just see that too?" Buddy decided that now was an excellent time to get high, in order to forget what we both saw. I, on the other hand, was paranoid and deeply worried, so I got a gun until we finished the job. We were both jumpy wrecks the whole time. For a while afterwards. The second time I met at a gas station late night while we were traveling through. I went inside to grab some stuff when I saw a woman that seemed oddly familiar. I didn't think anything of it since I never got a good look the first time, but she gave me an increasingly bad feeling in my gut. Only when she approached and she started talking to me, and referred to that night in specific that we saw the shapeshifter. Which had me shitting bricks and dripping cold sweat, once I realized what she was. My buddy looked in, and got inside to get me because he apparently recognized her. He was a sweaty wreck, who was secretly carrying a pistol as we hurried up to pay for our shit, before making a run for the car to drive away ASAP. We were both smart enough to not look back. For some reason deep down I know, if that run into that thing a third time, I won't be walking away from that encounter. So yeah, stay the hell away from being in the middle of nowhere, especially if it's late. I don't know what is with those places and messed up shit happening. Also always be armed, no matter what. High mountain desert in the southwest. She looked like a gorgeous young Native American woman. Which is apparently how my buddy recognized her, was due to her figure, which made him suspicious enough to take a closer look. I've asked around before about their kind. Apparently, nobody survives a third encounter with them, and it's theorized they are some kind of witch, who made a dark pact to become what they are for the sake of power/youth. Apparently very evil dark shit, according to native legends. A shaman I talked to shat bricks, when I explained what happened, and warned me under no circumstance am I to have a third encounter with it. As apparently nobody ever survives running into one a third time. It's assumed if you ran into one twice and you vanished, they know that she got you the third time. It is rare to survive the encounter twice, and encountering one once is more common than you would think. So it's not a skinwalker per se, but some other entity. I cannot remember the name, but they're native women-like creatures who use skins to help shapeshift themselves. Been a long time since I last researched it. One of many reasons I avoid going to the middle of nowhere, or in the wilderness when it's late. One of the few things I bring up because I wasn't the only witness.